Welcome back to the channel, my beautiful observers. It's your girl Ava. Go ahead and pour yourself a heavy pour of whatever gets you through the evening. Because tonight's story is a masterclass in elegant, calculating vengeance. We've all seen the tragic tale of a devoted wife giving her best years to a narcissistic corporate ladder climber, only to be left bleeding out while he caters to his conniving mistress's panic attacks. But what happens when that same wife hits the ultimate reset button and wakes up with ice running through her veins? Settle in. Darlings, it's time to watch the trash take itself out. Who are you, sir? I've just been too busy with company projects lately. I didn't think of it for a moment. Wyatt furrowed his handsome brows, his tone full of impatience and self-righteousness. Are you really going to fuss over a dinner like this? Familiar words, familiar expression. In my past life, it was by listening to words like these that I walked step by step into the abyss. I quietly looked at his handsome yet utterly unapologetic American face. Today is our 3rd wedding anniversary. He forgot. Just like he forgot all the things he promised me. Forgot the promise to share household chores. Forgot the appointment to accompany me to the hospital for an important checkup. Even forgot ... in my past life, when I lay on the emergency room bed, blood staining the sheets, desperately calling him dozens of times, begging him to come see me one last time. His phone was turned off. Where was he at that time? Oh, he was accompanying his close female friend, Zoe, simply because Zoe had called him crying about her panic attack, saying she needed someone with her. And I, when I needed my husband the most, closed my eyes alone and in despair. How utterly laughable. Reborn in this life, standing in this luxurious penthouse apartment, I don't want to fuss anymore, because he doesn't deserve it. I slowly lifted my head, replacing my gaze with carefully disguised bewilderment and unfamiliarity. I looked at this man I loved for 10 years, and also hated to the bone. At the corner of my lips, I slowly curved up an innocent arc. Sir, I spoke softly, my voice gentle and ethereal. Excuse me, who are you? Let's talk about the sheer, diabolical brilliance of this Uno reverse card. Ladies, narcissistic men absolutely love playing. I was just too busy card to invalidate your totally justified anger. They expect you to cry, nag, and beg, because your emotional breakdown is a 5-star buffet for their fragile egos. What does our girl Harper do? She completely uninstalls him from her operating system, looking a man dead in the eye and stripping him of his very identity in your life is the ultimate psychological blow. You want selective amnesia. Wyatt Cute. Let me show you how a professional deletes the entire hard drive. It's an Oscar-worthy masterclass in gaslighting the gaslighter. The impatience on Wyatt's face instantly froze. He stood there stunned, as if he hadn't heard me clearly. A trace of irritation flashed through his narrow blue eyes. Harper, what game are you playing now? I blinked, and the mist in my eyes spread out just right. My body swayed lightly, as if I were about to fall the next second. My head hurts so much. I pressed my hand to my forehead, frowning with a pained expression. Wyatt's expression finally changed, from impatience, to shock, then to a hint of panic he couldn't hide. He rushed forward and grabbed my arm tightly. Harper, don't scare me. His grip was very strong, hurting me. I sneered inwardly. No, you are scared too late. I let my body's weight lean against the edge of the sofa, looking at him with unfocused eyes. Sir, do you know me? Can you help me call a cab? I can't find my way home. watching his face turn deathly pale in an instant. The flower of revenge bloomed in my heart. "Wyatt, isn't your selective amnesia pretty impressive? Well then, let me, a real amnesiac patient, give you a good taste of it. This time, it is my turn to choose to completely forget you." Wyatt completely panicked. He grabbed my shoulders, calling my name over and over again. "Harper, look at me. I am Wyatt. I am your husband." I just stared at him blankly, my eyes as hollow as if I were looking at a stranger on the roadside. Husband, that word, hearing it now, sounds like a joke from hell. I gently broke free from his hands and took a step back. "I don't know you." My voice was soft, yet like a heavy hammer. It struck hard on Wyatt's heart. The panic in his eyes was almost overflowing. He immediately pulled out his phone, trembling as he dialed his private doctor, then took me to the most upscale private hospital in the city center. After a series of brain scans and examinations, the doctor held the report and came to a conclusion. The patient's brain has experienced some kind of severe psychological trauma, causing the brain's self-protection mechanism to activate and block the memories. In clinical terms, we call this condition psychogenic amnesia. Wyatt held the diagnosis report, veins bulging on the back of his hand, his hands shaking badly. I sat on the hospital bed, quietly watching the city skyline outside the window. In my heart, though, he was giving this doctor's acting skills a perfect score. This was my father's close friend from before his death, an authoritative brain specialist. The first moment I woke up after rebirth, I secretly contacted him. All for today. "Wyatt, don't you love putting on an act to deceive me? Well, in this lifetime, I'll act along with you to the fullest." Just then, the hospital room door was suddenly pushed open. My mother-in-law Martha charged in wearing high heels. She snatched the diagnostic report from Wyatt's hands and threw it viciously onto the hospital bed. "Pretending, keep pretending," she pointed at my nose and cursed me out. "So what if Wyatt forgot your wedding anniversary because he was busy with work, and you are here acting like you are dying and faking amnesia? Harper, I never realized you were so scheming. You think you can blackmail my son into giving you more shares this way. In my past life, she was the same, always accusing me without reason, pinning all the blame on me in her eyes. Her son was the most perfect elite under heaven, while I, even my breathing was wrong. I shrank back, like a frightened rabbit, ducking behind Wyatt. Me face showed perfectly calibrated fear. "Wyatt, who is she? She is so scary." I clutched at the corner of Wyatt's custom-tailored suit, me voice breaking into sobs. Wyatt looked at my frightened appearance, then at his furious mother, and for the first time his face showed a conflicted and angry expression. He turned around, spreading his arms to shield me. "Mom, can you keep your voice down? Harper really has amnesia," the doctor confirmed it. Martha laughed in anger. "She has amnesia. She is just using this trick to manipulate you, son. Don't let this bitch fool you." I hid behind Wyatt, quietly peeking out my head, looking at her timidly. "This hot-tempered old granny. I really don't know you guys. Can you go outside to argue? Me head is about to split open." Hearing the words old granny, Martha's face, pumped full of Botox, instantly turned from flushed red to ashen. "Old granny." Martha's voice shot up 8 octaves, so shrill it nearly pierced eardrums. She touched her well-maintained face in disbelief. "What did you call me?" I blinked my innocent eyes, looking at her with glistening puppy eyes. "I can see wrinkles at the corners of your eyes. Isn't it right to call you Granny? Sorry, I really don't remember anything." Martha trembled all over with rage, her finger pointing at me, shaking. You ill-mannered." "Mom, Enov. Wyatt finally couldn't take it anymore and roared. He steadied his tottering mother, his face full of exhaustion and irritation. The doctor said she can't handle any stress right now. Go back first. Martha looked at her son, yelling at her for my sake, the venom in her eyes deepening. But she eventually grabbed her designer bag, glared at me viciously, then left in her high heels. That look seemed to say, "Just you wait." The hospital room finally became quiet. Wyatt sat by my bedside, his eyes complex. He wanted to reach out and touch my hair, but I instinctively dodged. I hugged my knees and curled up at the head of the bed, like a small beast with no sense of security. Wyatt finally compromised. He handled the discharge procedures and took me home, back to that large flat apartment I'd lived in for 3 years, which now felt incredibly disgusting. As soon as I entered, I smelled a perfume scent that didn't belong to me, some kind of sickeningly sweet, fruity note. It was Zoe's scent. I sneered inwardly, but my face remained expressionless as I looked around like a curious guest. On the wall hung my wedding photo with Wyatt. I looked so happy in the photo. I pointed at the photo and turned back to ask Wyatt innocently, "Is this handsome man you, and this woman laughing so silly next to you? Is that me?" Wyatt's Adam's apple rolled with difficulty, his voice hoarse. "Yes, it is us." I walked to the leather sofa and reached out to pick up an unfamiliar embroidered cushion with an elegant letter embroidered on it. In my past life, I had a huge fight with him over this cushion, but he said it was a sample from a client and told me not to be paranoid like a psycho. I held up that cushion. "This cushion is really pretty, but why is there an M here? Could it be there is another person in this home?" Wyatt's face turned even paler. He opened his mouth, about to explain. Just then, his phone suddenly rang. A glaring name flickered on the screen. Zoe. He instinctively wanted to hang up, but I had already inadvertently leaned over and caught a glimpse. I tilted my head and asked in confusion, "Zoe, is that your nickname, sir?" The ringtone sounded particularly jarring in the quiet living room. Wyatt held his phone like he was holding a hot coal. He eventually turned away and quickly walked to the floor, to ceiling window to answer the call. He deliberately lowered his voice, but I could still hear him crystal clear. "Zoe, what is wrong? Don't be scared. Take some medicine. I'll be right over." I stood in the center of the living room, looking at his back. My heart ice, cold. Look at that. This is my so-called husband, even though I had lost my memory, and he had just brought me home from the hospital. With one phone call from his white moonlight, he would still rush to her without hesitation. A leopard can't change its spots, so don't blame me for not being polite. Wyatt left without looking back, leaving only the words urgent matter at the company. I stood in place, listening to the sound of the apartment door closing. The sickly sweet perfume smell in the living room seemed even stronger. The confusion and innocence I had put on my face faded away inch by inch, replaced by bone, chilling coldness and mockery. I threw the cushion embroidered with on the ground and stepped on it. Like a queen inspecting her territory, I walked into our master bedroom. I pulled open that enormous walk-in closet. Me clothes were squeezed into a corner, while on the other side, several smaller-sized women's dresses hung there brazenly, all in Zoe's favorite pure desire style. I pulled open the dresser drawer. Inside was a set of extremely expensive men's skincare products. A sticky note was attached to the bottom of the bottle, with delicate handwriting. "Dear Wyatt, remember to use it on time. Love, Zoe." I expressionlessly picked up that bottle of essence water, walked into the bathroom, unscrewed the cap, and poured all the expensive liquid inside into the toilet. We need to discuss the absolute unmitigated gall of a mistress leaving her high-end skincare in the marital bathroom with a sickly, sweet, sticky note. That's never an accident. That's a territorial pissing contest. She wanted Harper to find it. But Harper flushing hundreds of dollars of premium essence down the toilet is the exact kind of petty, therapeutic justice my soul craves. When a homewrecker breaches your sanctuary to play house, you don't confront her and give her the soapy drama she so desperately wants. You treat her existence exactly like what it is: plumbing waste. Down the drain it goes, right where that cheap little romance belongs. Then, the face cream, serum, perfume, anything that woman had left behind. I watched them being flushed down the drain, disappearing without a trace, and an intense pleasure surged through my heart. This was just the beginning. Back in the living room, I took out my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. The call connected quickly, and a crisp yet faintly angry female voice came through. "Harper, you are finally willing to answer the phone. If you hadn't replied soon, I was about to call the police." It was my American bestie, Sarah, a woman who dared to love and hate more rational than me. I sniffled, me voice instantly taking on a sobbing tone. "Sarah, I am so scared." Sarah on the other end of the phone immediately panicked. "What is wrong, sweetheart? Don't cry. Did that bastard Wyatt bully you again? Where are you? I am coming right over." Half an hour later, the apartment doorbell was rung so loudly it shook the ceiling. As soon as I opened the door, Sarah rushed in like a whirlwind and threw her arms around me. I told her everything that happened yesterday. Of course, I hid the rebirth, only saying that I was stimulated by Wyatt and his mom, and briefly lost my memory. My mind was all messed up, but I happened to see that man's true colors clearly. After hearing it all, Sarah was so angry she slammed her fist on the Marble Island counter. I knew that pair of cheating scumbags were trouble. "Harper, don't be afraid. I've got your back." She looked at me with reddened eyes. "It is good you lost your memory. Forget that scumbag. I'll help you pack right now. Let's go. Come to my place." I pressed down on her hand and shook my head slightly. "No, Sarah. I can't just leave like this." I raised my head, my eyes clear and cold. "That life Wyatt owes me, those 3 years of youth, I can't just let it go. I want to make him lose everything he cares about." Sarah froze for a moment, then understood what I meant. The corner of her mouth curled into a dangerous smile. "That is right. We can't just let it go. We're gonna make him leave with nothing, ruin his reputation." We looked at each other and smiled, perfectly in sync. We didn't pack our luggage. Instead, we ordered a ton of high-calorie takeout: pizza, fried chicken, cheese. We opened a bottle of the most expensive red wine from the storage room to celebrate my new life late at night. The sound of the door lock turning. Wyatt came back, reeking of alcohol and exhausted. When he saw me and Sarah drinking red wine in the living room, along with the messy table, he froze. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" he frowned. Sarah blocked in front of me like a mother lion protecting her cub. "Why can't I be here? This is my best friend's house." Wyatt's gaze moved past her and landed on me, a flash of guilt in his eyes. "Harper, Before he could finish, I immediately hid behind Sarah like a startled little deer. I clutched Sarah's sweater tightly, my body trembling slightly, and asked in a timid voice, "Sarah, who is this strange uncle? Why does he have a key to my house? I am so scared of him." The blood drained from Wyatt's face in an instant. He stood frozen in place, like a stone sculpture drained of its soul. the pain in his eyes almost becoming tangible. Behind Sarah, he watched him coldly. "Wyatt, this is just the appetizer. The gates of hell have only just opened for you." Wyatt sat on the living room sofa all night long, his eyes bloodshot from exhaustion. Meanwhile, I slept incredibly soundly on the soft bed in the master bedroom. Early the next morning, while I was still eating the breakfast Sarah had prepared for me, the doorbell rang. Wyatt went to open the door like a wandering ghost. Standing at the door was a carefully dressed up Zoe. She was wearing a pure white cashmere dress, with barely their makeup on, and carrying a basket of organic imported fruit in her hand. Seeing Wyatt, she immediately showed a gentle and concerned expression. "Wyatt, I heard Harper is sick. I am worried, so I came to check on her." Her voice was so soft and delicate, it seemed ready to drip with sweetness. She walked into the dining room, her gaze immediately locking onto me. There was scrutiny in those eyes, probing, and a hint of barely detectable smugness. She came over, wanting to affectionately take my hand. "Harper, are you okay? Do you still remember me? I am Zoe." Sarah cleverly blocked her, helping me avoid her touch. I tilted my head, looking her up and down with an innocent gaze. "Zoe." I pointed at the cushion on the floor, not far away that I had stepped on. "Is it the Zoe with the letter?" The smile on Zoe's face froze. Wyatt's expression also became extremely unnatural. Like a clueless child, I continued using the softest, sweetest voice to drop the heaviest bombshell. "Miss, what is your relationship with this gentleman?" I pointed in the direction of the master bedroom. "I saw so many of your pretty dresses in the walk-in closet yesterday. And in the bathroom, there are skincare products you specially left for him." I widened my innocent eyes. Could it be? "You are this gentleman's mistress." The air instantly fell into a deathly silence. Sarah stood nearby, holding a coffee cup, biting her lip desperately to keep herself from laughing out loud. Wyatt's face had turned ashen grey, and he didn't even dare to look me in the eye. And Zoe, that delicate face alternated between red and white, utterly spectacular. She barely maintained her smile that was about to collapse. "Sis, you've misunderstood. Wyatt and we've known each other since childhood. We're just really good friends. Just leaving a few things here." "Oh." I drew out the sound, nodding as if suddenly understanding. "So this is what is popular in America now. Friends so close they can share a house, share a closet, and even share a husband." This innocent rhetorical question was like a loud slap, hitting Zoe and Wyatt hard in the face. Zoe's eyes instantly reddened, tears falling like broken beads, looking at Wyatt pitifully. "Wyatt, hurry and explain to Sis. How can she misunderstand me like this?" Wyatt's head was splitting with pain. He opened his mouth, about to comfort Zoe, but I suddenly clutched my head and let out a painful scream. "Ah, my head! It hurts so much!" My body went limp, falling straight toward the floor. "Harper!" Sarah and Wyatt cried out simultaneously. Wyatt, with his long legs, rushed over and scooped me up horizontally. I leaned against his chest, trembling uncontrollably all over, pointing at Zoe with a pale face, crying feebly. "Sir, I am so scared. When I see that lady, my head feels like it is going to explode. Please make her leave, okay? I don't want to see her." Wyatt held me as I trembled, lifting his head to look at Zoe. In that moment, coldness and rejection appeared in his eyes toward Zoe for the first time. "You should leave first." His voice was cold and hard as iron. "The doctor said she can't be subjected to any external stimulation." Zoe's eyes widened in disbelief. She was used to Wyatt obeying her every wish and never expected that Wyatt would actually kick her out. "Wyatt, You are really kicking me out." Wyatt didn't spare her another glance, carrying me in big strides toward the bedroom. With a bang, the bedroom door closed, completely shutting out that green tea bitch's twisted face. I buried myself in Wyatt's expensive shirt, a cold smile curling at the corner of my lips. The show has only just begun. Wyatt gently placed me on the master bedroom bed, tucking the silk quilt around me. His movements showed a tenderness and carefulness I had never seen in over 3 years of marriage. I closed my eyes, feeling his burning and regretful gaze, but my heart was filled with cold, deathly silence. Only now you know how to cherish. Only now you learn to be gentle. Too late, Wyatt. In my past life, when I was lying alone in the emergency room, blood staining the cold sheets. Where were you? You were at Zoe's apartment, speaking in gentle tones to comfort that woman who only had a slight fever and a panic attack. How desperate I must have been back then. Sarah walked in, holding a glass of warm water in her hand. She glared at Wyatt rudely. "What are you still standing here for? Harper needs rest, and you being here will only make her tense." Wyatt's proud face was now full of dejection. He moved his lips, wanting to argue back, but in the end silently withdrew. Sarah sat by the bed, touched my forehead, lowered her voice, her blue eyes sparkling with excitement. "Harper, your acting just now could totally win you an Oscar. You didn't see it, that green tea bitch named Zoe." Her face turned as green as a moldy avocado. I opened my eyes, blinked at her, and the corner of my mouth curled into a cold smile. The real show is still ahead. In the following days, Wyatt completely changed. He cancelled all his social engagements, even postponed several important board meetings, and came back to the apartment on time every day. He clumsily busied himself in the open kitchen, trying to learn how to fry bacon and pancakes, attempting to make up for things this way, to awaken my memories. He would point at the wedding photo on the wall and tell me over and over again, "Harper, look, this is us. You were smiling so happily back then." I just stared blankly at the photo, then pointed at myself in the picture and softly asked him, "That woman, is she really happy?" Wyatt was instantly speechless. Happy. He couldn't even convince himself. As for Zoe, she called a few more times, and Wyatt hung up directly in front of me every time. Once, he even irritably blocked her number. Watching him desperately trying to distance himself, I just found it laughable. Where was this earlier? But this wasn't enough. Far from enough. I needed an opportunity to completely leave this cage full of lies. Sarah helped create this opportunity for me. That afternoon, Sarah came to the apartment and announced she was taking me out for afternoon tea to clear my mind. Wyatt instinctively wanted to object. Sarah shot him a glare. "What? You want to lock her up at home forever? The doctor said more exposure to different environments helps memory recovery. Do you want her to treat you like a stranger forever?" Wyatt was left speechless and could only agree, but he insisted on driving and following us. We went to the most upscale French café in the city center. Sarah said she had arranged to meet an extremely capable friend to consult about some legal advice regarding my current situation. It was then that a man wearing a high-end tailored dark suit pushed open the café's glass door and walked toward us. He was tall and upright, handsome, looking with a calm demeanor that was impossible to ignore. Behind his gold-rimmed glasses, his eyes were sharp and deep, like an elegant yet deadly cheetah. "Sarah," he spoke, his voice deep and pleasant, with the texture of a cello. "Toby, you are finally here, come sit," Sarah greeted enthusiastically. The man nodded, his gaze turning toward me. The moment he saw me, those deep eyes paused slightly, a trace of barely perceptible complex emotions flashing through them. He pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses and extended his slender, attractive hand toward me. "Hello, Miss Harper. I am Toby." I looked at him, feeling inexplicably dazed. This name, this face. I felt like I'd seen him somewhere before. But before I could react, Wyatt, who had been sitting nearby closely monitoring us, had already charged over like an enraged beast. Wyatt radiated intense hostility, pulling me behind him in one motion, staring daggers at Toby. "Who are you?" "You know my wife." Toby calmly withdrew his hand, his gaze behind the lenses calm yet sharp, carrying the imposing aura of someone in a position of power. "Mr. Wyatt, I think you've misunderstood. I am Miss Harper's attorney, commissioned by Miss Sarah. I have full authority to handle all legal matters for Miss Harper during her amnesia period, including, but not limited to," Toby paused, enunciating each word clearly and precisely as he uttered two words: asset division and divorce application. The two words divorce were like a thunderclap exploding loudly in Wyatt's ears. His face instantly drained of all color. Divorce. Wyatt's chest heaved violently, his eyes turning blood, red from extreme panic and rage. He suddenly turned his head and grabbed my arm, with such force that it felt like he was about to crush my bones. "No, I absolutely will not agree, Harper. You tell this bastard lawyer, we are not getting divorced." His emotions were on the verge of losing control. His suit pulled somewhat disheveled. I immediately put on an act like I was terrified by him, my body trembling violently out of control. I struggled desperately, trying to shake off his hand, tears instantly welling up. "Let go of me. It hurts." "I don't know you, you scary stranger." My cries drew sideways, glances from other customers in the cafe, as people turned disapproving looks our way. Toby's expression completely darkened. He stepped forward, his movements appearing refined yet carrying an unquestionable powerful force, precisely gripping Wyatt's wrist and twisting it hard. Wyatt winced in pain and instinctively let go of me. I immediately hid behind Toby's broad back, like a startled little deer. I clutched tightly at the edge of his high-end suit jacket, peeked out halfway, and asked the man in front of me in a tearful, feeble voice, "Lawyer Toby, this man is so scary. I am so afraid of him." Toby gently patted the back of my hand that was clutching his clothes, as if soothing a startled kitten. Then he turned his head, his gaze cold as ice as he looked at the furious Wyatt. "Mr. Wyatt, I believe I've made myself quite clear just now. Miss Harper is now my client. All of her legal rights and interests are protected by my team." "Client? Protected?" Wyatt acted as if he'd heard the joke of the century, pointing at Toby through gritted teeth. "She is my legally wedded wife. It is not your place as an outsider to meddle in our marital affairs." He tried to step forward, attempting to grab me again, but Toby blocked his path first, his voice devoid of any warmth. According to the hospital's diagnostic report, Miss Harper is currently in a state of psychogenic amnesia. Any intense emotional stimulation could cause irreversible secondary damage to her brain. Your rough pulling and shouting in public just now, from a legal standpoint, already constitutes emotional abuse. If you take one more step forward as her attorney, I will immediately call the police and apply to the court for a restraining order against you. Every sentence from Toby was like an extremely precise scalpel, cutting open Wyatt's disguised affection to expose the ugly truth beneath. Emotional abuse? Are you kidding me? Wyatt angrily retorted. I love her. I am just trying to help her recover her memory." A mocking smile curved at the corner of Toby's lips. "Is that so by yelling and screaming? By hurting her? Mr. Wyatt, your love is far too cheap and selfish." Sarah immediately joined in with full force. "Wyatt, you still have the nerve to talk about love when you forgot your anniversary and left her home alone? Where was your love? When Zoe called and you came running like an eager puppy, where was your love then?" The barrage of questions was like a series of sharp slaps, striking hard against Wyatt's proud face. The surrounding guests had already begun whispering among themselves, their contemptuous gazes piercing Wyatt like needles. He had always prided himself on being an elite CEO. When had he ever suffered such public humiliation? He watched me hiding behind another man, looking at him with the fearful eyes one would use to look at a monster. That utter sense of estrangement shattered his last line of psychological defense. "Harper," he murmured my name, his voice carrying a pleading tone. "Let's go home, okay?" I shook my head desperately, tears streaming down in large drops. "I don't want to. I don't want to go with you." Toby didn't spare Wyatt another glance, turning around to speak to me in an extremely gentle voice. "Harper, don't be afraid. Let's go. I'll take you away from here." He led me away, with Sarah following closely behind. As we brushed past Wyatt, I could feel it. Wyatt's gaze was like nailed in place, glued to me, filled with regret and despair. But I didn't look back, not a single step. Only after getting into Toby's understated luxurious black Maybach SUV did I truly breathe a sigh of relief. The interior was spacious, permeated with a faint, incredibly pleasant scent of cedarwood. This was completely different from the sickeningly sweet perfume smell of Zoe's in Wyatt's car. This was a clean space that filled one with a sense of security. Sarah sat in the passenger seat, her cheeks flushed red with excitement. "Oh my God, Toby, you were absolutely amazing just now." You didn't see Wyatt's face. It looked like he'd swallowed a lemon whole, so satisfying. Toby glanced at me through the rear-view mirror, his eyes gentle. "I only did what I should do. Miss Harper, how are you feeling now?" I leaned back against the soft leather seat and shook my head. "I am fine, and I really appreciate your help today, Attorney Toby." My voice no longer carried the crying tone and trembling from earlier, returning to my usual calm and sharp demeanor. Sarah turned around to look at me with concern. "Harper, what do you plan to do next? You definitely can't go back to that apartment full of lies. Come stay at my place first." I was about to nod when Toby, who was driving, suddenly spoke up, his voice steady. "I am afraid that wouldn't be appropriate." "Why not?" Sarah asked, puzzled. Toby kept his eyes on the road ahead, analyzing methodically. "Wyatt is extremely emotionally unstable right now and is very likely to act irrationally. He knows your home address, and if he shows up in the middle of the night, you two girls will be in danger. Besides, the security level of your apartment can't stop a crazed real estate company CEO." Toby turned the steering wheel and drove into a bustling district. "I own a penthouse in the city center. That building has the highest level security system. Only fingerprint and facial recognition can light up the elevator. For the next few days, Miss Harper can stay there. Absolutely no one will disturb you. I'll handle all the subsequent legal procedures." My heart stirred, but Sarah seemed a bit hesitant. Wouldn't this be too much trouble for you, Toby?" Toby spoke calmly. "No trouble. Ensuring the absolute safety of clients is also part of a lawyer's job. And also," he paused, looking at me deeply through the rearview mirror. That look seemed to hide 1,000 unspoken words. "Harper and I, we go way back. Go way back." Both Sarah and I were stunned, I frantically searched through my memories from my previous life, but no matter what, I couldn't find any recollection of this top-tier mature man before me. I asked in confusion. We knew each other before. A trace of barely perceptible tenderness flashed through Toby's eyes, too quickly for me to catch. He quickly regained his composure. Many years ago, we crossed paths before. You probably don't remember. He didn't say more. The car soon drove into the underground parking garage of an ultra-luxury building. We took the private elevator, which went directly into the unit. The moment the elevator doors opened, I was stunned by the view before me. This was a spacious open-plan apartment with an expansive view, minimalist modern American-style decor, a color scheme of black, white and grey, clean and sharp. Outside the massive panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows was the dazzling night view of the entire city. This place was 1,000 times more comfortable than that so-called luxury wedding home Wyatt and I had. Toby handed me a black access card. It is very safe here. Stay here and relax. He stood at the entrance, his posture straight, his aura powerful. He was like a knight descending from the heavens, pulling me out of desperation and giving me an impregnable haven. I looked at Toby and said earnestly, "Toby, thank you so much." He looked at me, the corners of his mouth seeming to lift slightly. That hint of a smile was incredibly charming. "You are welcome. From now on, just call me Toby." Wyatt was about to lose his mind. He returned to that empty open-plan apartment, looking at the table, littered with takeout boxes and Sarah's coffee cup. Only then did he belatedly realize that Harper had really left him. It wasn't a woman's coy tantrum. It wasn't throwing a fit. It was a long, premeditated, complete escape. He dialed my phone over and over again. It was always Sarah who answered. Sarah warned him in an extremely impatient tone. "Wyatt, stop harassing Harper. She is safe now, in a place you'll never find in your lifetime. From now on, contact Toby, the lawyer, directly about her matters." After saying that, he hung up the phone. When calling again, it went straight to voicemail. Wyatt paced back and forth in the living room, like a wild beast trapped in a cage, irritable and restless. He kicked over the coffee table, with one foot smashing those expensive vases and wine glasses. He looked at our wedding photo on the wall, where I was smiling radiantly in the picture. He punched the wall hard, his knuckles immediately scraped and bleeding. He couldn't understand. That Harper, who used to be obedient to him and loved him deeply, how could she become like this? A huge panic drowned him like a tide, and the instigator of all this, me. At this moment, I was leisurely soaking in the ridiculously large massage bathtub in Toby's apartment, holding a glass of chilled champagne that Sarah poured for me. "Harper, what are you planning to do next? Are you really going to file for divorce directly?" Sarah asked excitedly. Toby said that with the angle he has, he can definitely make Wyatt bleed big time and leave the marriage with nothing. I swirled the wine glass in my hand, the golden bubbles like flames of revenge under the light. "Leave with nothing," I sneered. "That is letting him off too easy." A flash of icy coldness crossed my eyes. "What I want isn't just his money. I want him ruined and left with nothing. I want him and Zoe, that pair of cheating dogs, to pay the price for all the pain I went through in my last life." The next morning, Toby came to the apartment. He brought a thick file that his professional investigation team had compiled overnight. He pushed the file in front of me. "This is the divorce agreement I've drafted preliminarily, and a plan for collecting evidence of Wyatt's extramarital affair and asset transfer." The clauses inside were clear, professional, and extremely ruthless, blocking off almost all of Wyatt's escape routes. Toby's slender fingers tapped lightly on the mahogany table. Wyatt's real estate company is currently in fierce competition for a multi-billion-dollar green energy project development deal from City Hall. This project is crucial to his company's survival and the upcoming IPO, and his biggest competitor is a top-tier multinational conglomerate, Apex Group. I looked up at Toby. Toby pushed up his expensive gold-rimmed glasses, a meaningful and charming smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Quite unfortunately, I am not only a partner, but also the chief legal advisor of Apex Group. In that instant, I understood everything. My heart began to beat violently from excitement. Wyatt, your greatest support, all your arrogance, comes from your career and your wealth. Then, I'll destroy your business empire first and make you fall hard from the clouds into the mud. He looked at Toby. Our gazes met in the air, and we both saw in each other's eyes the mutual understanding, the battle of high intelligence. And Toby. I called his name so familiarly for the first time. I have a proposal, a plan that can make him never recover. Outside the window, the sun was shining brightly, and a devastating financial storm targeting Wyatt had just begun. Toby's eyes carried deep inquiry and appreciation. He looked at me as if getting to know a soul full of charm and wisdom anew. Let's hear it. What is your plan? His voice was low, giving people an infinite sense of trust. I took a deep breath, piecing together the fragments of memories from my previous life. To secure that multi-billion new energy project, Wyatt basically bet everything he had. The core bid document for the proposal was something he bought at a high price, but there is a fatal flaw hidden in that bid document. The smile at the corner of my mouth grew colder. To cut costs, he faked the environmental assessment data and planned to use a batch of cheap eco-friendly building materials with serious safety hazards. What is even worse is that to get the City Hall's internal auditor on board, he is involved in serious bribery. This secret only came out half a year after the project started in my previous life, leading to an FBI investigation. But now, none of this has happened yet. All the original evidence, those genuine bills and bribery records, are not on this project's public server. A sharp gleam flashed in Toby's eyes. Where are they? In the place he trusts most. I paused, recalling those places I had wiped countless times, but never opened. In the hidden safe in the master bedroom study of our previous apartment. There is a backup black USB drive in there with all the evidence of his crimes. Sarah gasped. The study safe. But how can we possibly get it now? Wyatt must be guarding against you guys like guarding against thieves. I looked at Toby, a cunning gleam flashing in my eyes. We definitely can't get it through normal means. So, we need a way to make him willingly open the safe for us himself. What does Wyatt desire most right now? It is for me to regain my memory, to turn me back into that pitifully stupid Harper from before. This is his greatest weakness at the moment. I am going to exploit this weakness and make him personally send himself to hell. Toby instantly understood my intention. He chuckled softly, that smile like the first thaw of ice and snow, carrying a deadly charm. You want to dangle the bait and lure him into the trap? I nodded. I need you to call Wyatt as my attorney. I leaned closer to Toby and told him my bold and crazy plan word by word. After listening, Toby fell silent for a moment. Then he looked at me deeply. Harper, you've really given me a huge surprise. He stood up, leisurely buttoning his suit jacket. Get ready, Hunter. It is time to close the net. At that very moment, Wyatt was sitting in the company president's office, irritably tugging at his tie. Zoe's call came through once again, and he didn't even look before hanging up directly. Hearing the busy tone from her phone, Zoe in her apartment angrily slammed her phone onto the sofa. "Wyatt, how dare you hang up on me?" She felt an unprecedented panic. If she didn't completely drive away that Harper who was pretending to have amnesia, she'd never become the president's wife. Zoe gritted her teeth and dialed Wyatt's mother, Martha's number, ready to continue fanning the flames. Meanwhile, Wyatt in the president's office just received a call on his personal phone. An unknown number. He answered it as if possessed by a ghost. From the other end of the line came a cold and professional male voice, carrying the tone of superiority that he hated most. "Hello, Mr. Wyatt. I am lawyer Toby." Wyatt's pupils suddenly contracted, his voice icy cold. "What the hell are you calling for, you bastard? I've got nothing to say to you." Toby said unhurriedly, "I am calling to convey a wish from my client, Miss Harper. She seems to have remembered some things." This sentence exploded like a thunderbolt in Wyatt's mind. He almost sprang up from his office chair. "What did you say? What did she remember?" She said she vaguely remembers that in her former home there was a study. Inside the wall of the study, there is a very important little black box. She feels that if she could see that box, her head might not hurt so much, and she might even recover her memory. Wyatt's heart pounded wildly. Study, hidden wall-safe black box. That was the box he used back then to hold the 3-carat pink diamond engagement ring. She actually still remembers that ring. Immense joy went to Wyatt's head, all his rationality shattered by hope in this moment. "Great, no problem. When are you coming? I'll be waiting for her at the apartment any time." Wyatt was so excited his voice was trembling. Toby's voice remained calm. "Tomorrow morning at 10, to avoid stimulating her. I don't want to see anyone other than you." After hanging up, Wyatt paced back and forth in his office with excitement. He thought, as long as Harper saw that engagement ring, she would definitely remember, would definitely come back to his side. He was completely unaware that he had already stepped foot into the carefully laid trap of eternal damnation we had prepared for him. The next day, at 10 a.m. sharp, Toby's black Maybach SUV pulled up on time in the penthouse apartment's private garage. Wyatt had been waiting at home to welcome my memory recovery. He specially changed into the navy blue casual suit he wore on our first date, and had cleared away overnight all traces of Zoe from the house. He even sprayed on the cologne I used to love most, with its faint woody scent. The car door opened. I was wearing a simple white dress, and with Sarah's support, I slowly stepped out. My face was still pale, my eyes full of carefully feigned confusion, wariness, and a hint of timidity. The moment I saw Wyatt, I instinctively shrank back behind Sarah, gripping her hand tightly. Wyatt's heart felt like it had been stabbed hard by something. He forced down the heartache and squeezed out what he thought was his most affectionate, most gentle smile. "Harper, don't be afraid. Welcome home." Toby's tall figure blocked my view at just the right moment, his expression as indifferent as a stern judge. "Mr. Wyatt, we're only here to retrieve belongings, to cooperate with the doctor's psychological treatment. Please don't say unnecessary nonsense that would cause emotional disturbance to my client." Wyatt's smile froze on his face. His hands clenched tightly into fists, but in order to help me recover my memory, he could only forcibly swallow his anger and nodded awkwardly. Our group walked into this home that had trapped me for 3 years. I looked around the spacious living room, my eyes full of curiosity about the unfamiliar environment, as if I really was just a passerby in this beautiful house. Wyatt followed behind us, sticking close. Those beautiful blue eyes of his never left me for a moment. In that gaze, there was earnest expectation, regret, and caught. I paid him no attention and walked straight toward the study at the end of the hallway. Sarah supported me, while Toby followed unhurriedly behind. Just as Wyatt was about to step through the doorway of the study, Toby's long arm blocked him outside. Mr. Wyatt, the private psychologist emphasized that she needs an absolutely quiet and undisturbed, independent environment. You wait outside. Although Wyatt was extremely unwilling, thinking that the black box containing the diamond ring might be the only lifeline to save his marriage, he could only grit his teeth and endure it, retreating outside the door. The study door slammed shut with a bang the instant the door closed. The blank and helpless expression on my face vanished without a trace. In its place was an extremely calm decisiveness. I quickly scanned this luxurious solid wood study. "Where is the safe?" Sarah lowered her voice and asked nervously. I pointed at the huge modern art abstract painting hanging on the wall. "Behind the painting." Toby stepped forward, his slender fingers gently moving the painting aside, revealing a metal combination safe embedded in the wall, gleaming with a silvery grey cold light. It was a top of the line biometric plus digital password lock. Sarah frowned. "What the hell is the password? Did he change it?" I closed my eyes, recalling those disgusting details from my last life. No, he found even changing the password to be a hassle. He set it to Zoe's birthday. I fluently recited a password consisting of 6 digits. After hearing it, Sarah was so angry she almost cursed out loud. That shameless bastard, using his mistress's birthday as the password. Toby expressionlessly entered that revolting string of numbers on the electronic keypad. Beep! Click! With a crisp sound, this door that hid Wyatt's deepest sins opened in response. Inside the safe were neatly arranged confidential paper agreements, property deeds, and several thick stacks of high-denomination dollar bills. And in the most prominent position was that black premium velvet ring box. And at the very bottom of the box was that inconspicuous black, encrypted USB drive. That is it. I took a deep breath, wearing gloves, quickly grabbed the USB drive, and stuffed it into the concealed pocket of my long dress. Then he picked up that ring box. The final act of this perfect deception was about to begin. I suddenly took a deep breath and started rapidly building up my emotions. Immediately after, I suddenly clutched my head tightly with both hands and let out an extremely shrill and agonizing scream, as if my brain was being torn apart. Aha! My head hurts so much. It hurts so bad. I let my body go soft with the momentum, heavily leaning against the edge of the study's heavy desk, sweeping the documents on the desk onto the floor. Sarah immediately caught on, shouting in an extremely anxious and terrified voice. "Harper, what is wrong, doctor? Toby, call the doctor quick." Toby immediately pulled open the study's heavy wooden door. Wyatt, who had been waiting outside the door, anxious and restless, heard the commotion and rushed in like a madman at the first opportunity. When he saw me with a deathly pale face, clutching my head and struggling in pain on the ground, he completely panicked. "Harper, Harper, what is wrong?" He tried to come hold me, but was forcefully, even brutally, blocked off by Toby. I was tightly clutching that black velvet ring box in my hand. I struggled to lift my head, staring at Wyatt with unfocused, bloodshot eyes. Tears slid down my cheeks in large drops. I remembered. This black box. You held this and proposed to me in Central Park. You also said you would love me forever and never hurt me. My voice was broken and intermittent, filled with heart-wrenching pain and confusion. Hearing these words, Wyatt trembled violently all over with excitement, tears instantly welling up in his eyes. He thought I had really remembered. He thought I was going to forgive him. "Yes, Harper, you remembered. That was our most beautiful day," he shouted loudly. He was just about to reach out to pull me in, but I suddenly turned into an enraged mother wolf, viciously hurling the black ring box in my hand at his face. "Liar, you disgusting liar," I screamed hysterically, letting tears wash over my cheeks. "These are all fake. You've been lying to me all along. I don't want to remember anything. It is too painful. Take me away, Toby, Sarah. Take me away from this disgusting place. I never want to see him again." I was as if struck by devastating trauma. Me emotions completely collapsed. Toby and Sarah immediately supported me on both sides, looking coldly at the dumbstruck Wyatt. "Mr. Wyatt, are you satisfied now?" Toby left behind this devastatingly cold remark, then protected me as we left without looking back from this place that had left me in despair for 3 years, leaving only Wyatt alone. He dejectedly knelt on the wool carpet in the study, staring blankly at the smashed open box on the floor, and that 3-carat pink diamond ring that had rolled into the corner, glittering with mocking light. On his face was a look of shock and despair, as if it were the end of the world. Back at Toby's top-floor apartment that radiated such a sense of security. The moment I walked through the door, all that pain, collapse, and tears on my face were instantly wiped clean. I pulled out that black USB drive from my hidden pocket and waved it in front of Sarah and Toby. Mission accomplished. Sarah excitedly gave me a bear hug that nearly suffocated me, screaming, "Harper, you are amazing. That study room performance of yours just now, even if a Hollywood Best Actress came, she'd have to bow down in defeat." Toby looked at me, and in those deep, cold eyes of his, there was now undisguised admiration and a hint of amazed amusement. He loosened his somewhat tight tie, took the USB drive, and unlocked his highly encrypted private laptop. On the computer screen, multiple verification codes quickly popped up. Toby's slender fingers flew across the keyboard at lightning speed, with a dizzying array of code flashing by. A few minutes later, there was a beep. Wyatt's highest level of encryption was completely cracked. The directory tree of folders was clearly displayed before our eyes. Inside were all of Wyatt Company's dark operations from the past few years, organized by category. I pointed to a parent folder named Green Energy Project. "This is it." Toby clicked on it. Just as I remembered, inside was not only the glossy PPT proposal he had submitted to City Hall, but also a deeply hidden subfolder with an extremely ironic name, Cost Optimization. After opening it, the massive amount of data and various scanned documents inside made all of us gasp. Inside was a detailed record of how Wyatt, in order to reduce the enormous costs of the Environmental Protection Project, planned to cut corners and use cheap or even toxic building materials without relevant safety certifications. Even more damning was, there were also offshore wire transfers between him and several municipal auditors, and several encrypted recordings of bribery. This was no longer a simple case of an unscrupulous businessman extracting profits. This was extremely serious federal commercial fraud, money laundering, and felony bribery. Once exposed, Wyatt would face not just bankruptcy and industry blacklisting, but decades of imprisonment. Sarah covered her mouth, shock written all over her face, her big blue eyes wide open. Oh my God. I always thought he was just a cheating scumbag, an asshole. I never imagined he was also a complete and utter criminal. But in my heart was a cold calm, even tinged with a hint of satisfaction that a great revenge was about to be exacted. Wyatt, to climb your way up, to maintain your pitiful elite ego. You really stopped at nothing. In my last life, you used this dirty, blood-stained money to buy Zoe limited edition handbags. Yet, you weren't even willing to pay for an ambulance to save me at the hospital. Toby's expression also became unusually serious. With the acuity unique to top lawyers facing major cases, he backed up all the evidence to an overseas cloud, encrypted hard drive that only he could access. Then, he turned his head and looked at me deeply from behind his gold-rimmed glasses. Harper, with these things. We can not only make him fail on the spot at tomorrow's municipal public bidding meeting and ruin his reputation, we can also directly send him to eat federal prison food. Are you ready to pull this trigger? He was asking me whether I wanted to go this far. I nodded without hesitation, my eyes cold as frost and snow that never melts. In my last life, when I died alone in the emergency room, did he ever think about how far he was going? Everything I am doing is just making him blood for blood. Toby looked at the resolute gleam in my eyes and said, "Not another word of nonsense." He understood. "Okay," he said only one word. Yet it represented support powerful enough to destroy everything. He immediately picked up his private encrypted phone and called several federal prosecutors and SEC investigators. He knew best, all of extremely high rank. He explained the situation simply yet incisively. A dragnet aimed at Wyatt's crumbling business empire had already completely spread open in silence. Tomorrow is the public bidding day for the municipal environmental project, with live media coverage. It was once the most desired highlight moment of Wyatt's life. It will also be the countdown to him being kicked into a bottomless abyss. The night gradually deepened. I held a glass of red wine, standing in front of the huge panoramic floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the myriad lights of this city that never sleeps. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a text message from an unknown number with no name saved. "Harper, this is Zoe. I know you hate me, and you hate Wyatt too, but can you please stop throwing tantrums? Tomorrow's environmental project is really important to Wyatt, and it also affects the livelihoods of thousands of employees. As long as you are willing to back off and obediently go back to the hospital for treatment, I promise I'll leave him forever and start over in Europe. I am begging you, please." Looking at this two-faced text message, I let out a short, cold laugh. Begging me, using this kind of tragic heroine's fake compassion act to gain my sympathy, while also trying to take the moral high ground to accuse me of throwing tantrums. "Zoe, do you think this is still my past life, where I'd fall for your pure tricks?" I didn't reply. Instead, I simply moved my fingers and forwarded this text message, word for word, to Wyatt, who was on the verge of a breakdown. And I added an extremely innocent message. "Mr. Wyatt, why is this sister named Zoe sending me texts in the middle of the night, begging me to let you go? Did you do something utterly unconscionable? Or is she actually your real wife? The adult world is so scary. My head is starting to hurt again. After sending it, I directly blocked that number." You can imagine what a spectacularly wonderful expression Wyatt, who desperately wanted to prove he only loved me, would have when he received that text message. He must have gone crazy with rage, venting all his fury on that self-righteous Zoe. This dog, eat. Dog Show is really like a perfect bedtime movie. Outside the window, thunderclouds roll. A storm belonging to the elite is about to arrive. I picked up the crystal, clear wine glass and gently clinked it against the night view outside the window. "Wyatt, Zoe, enjoy your last night as respectable people, because after tomorrow, your hypocritical world will completely collapse." The next day, City Hall International Conference Center. as the largest single new energy environmental development project in the city in the past decade. The city's top media, busyness tycoons, and municipal officials gathered together. Camera flashes went off one after another. This was $100 billion, level war without gunpowder. Wyatt sat in the VIP seats in the first row, wearing a custom dark grey suit worth over $10,000. His usually meticulously groomed slicked back hair appeared somewhat messy today, with undisguisable dark circles under his eyes. But he still forced himself to maintain that elite mask of certainty to win. Last night, he received the text message I forwarded to him. He was so furious that he smashed that limited edition phone directly. Then immediately used his backup phone to call Zoe, cursing her out viciously for trying to act on her own, using extremely malicious words. He already felt a nauseating disgust toward Zoe's face that always pretended to be frail. Right now, he had only one thought in his mind: secure this multi-billion-dollar project and successfully take the company public. Then, use this enormous, unrivaled success and wealth to bring in those psychologists and the best experts, and drag Harper back to his side. He believed that as long as he possessed absolute power and money, no woman could refuse him, let alone that wife who once loved him to the bone. As for that so-called senior partner Toby, he was nothing more than a clown who acted arrogant in front of him just because he could recite a few legal clauses. As the municipal director announced the official start of the open bidding conference, several major real estate companies took turns going on stage, displaying their proposals through the massive LED screen. Those fancy data, in Wyatt's view, were nothing but cliché without any originality. Finally, it was his turn to appear, under the spotlight of all eyes. Amidst a wave of applause, he walked onto the podium. The spotlight shone on him, as if he truly were the king of that business empire. He manipulated the slides and began eloquently presenting his extremely grandiose blueprint. The most cutting-edge overseas environmental technology introduced, extremely precise and restrained cost control, grand promises of creating thousands of jobs. Even the wicked mother-in-law Martha, sitting in the audience, was so excited her face was full of pride, as if she had already become the most honorable Empress Dowager of this city. Wyatt used an extremely infectious voice to complete his final summary. Distinguished guests, honorable jury members, choosing us is choosing a greener future for this city. Thunderous applause erupted throughout the venue. Wyatt bowed in gratitude, a victor's arrogant smile appearing on his face. As he walked off stage, he even provocatively swept a glance with the corner of his eye at his strongest competitor, the seats of Apex Group. The host announced, "Next, we invite the project representative from Apex Group to take the stage and present." However, the person who walked onto the stage was not Apex Group's pot-bellied engineering director, but rather their young, mysterious chief legal counsel with an extremely oppressive presence, Toby. He wore a black haute couture suit without a single wrinkle, his gold-rimmed glasses reflecting cold, sharp glints under the stage's glaring white lights. The moment he took the stage, that kind of calm authority and pressure of someone in a position of power instantly silenced the venue that had been somewhat noisy. Wyatt's pupils suddenly contracted, his brows furrowed tightly together. How could he be the one presenting? What does he want to do? A sense of devastating premonition crawled up Wyatt's spine like a cold, venomous snake. Toby didn't open an ordinary PPT presentation. He simply stood at the center of the podium, hands pressed against the surface, his sharp eagle-like gaze sweeping past countless camera lenses, landing precisely on Wyatt as if looking at a corpse. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am the Chief Legal Counsel of Apex Group, Toby. His cello, like bass voice, transmitted through the highest grade microphone, clearly reached every corner of the venue. Before presenting our Shenyuan's proposal, based on the principles of protecting public interest and fair competition, I would like to first raise several fatal legal doubts about Mr. Wyatt's seemingly flawless proposal just now. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire venue erupted in commotion. The flashlights instantly started flickering like crazy. At 100 billion level municipal public bidding conference, openly questioning a competitor. This was an unprecedented bombshell. Wyatt's face instantly turned black as the bottom of a pot. He shot up from his seat, pointing at Toby on stage and roaring angrily, "What do you mean? This is blatant commercial defamation." Mother-in-law Martha also shrieked sharply from below the stage, "Where is security? Quickly throw this lunatic out." The venue descended into chaos, with voices of discussion erupting everywhere. Yet Toby on stage remained unmoved. He raised the hand wearing a Patek Philippe watch and gently pressed it downward, signaling everyone to quiet down. Then, he snapped his fingers crisply at the technical staff in the side curtain area. The several hundred-inch LED screen behind him instantly switched displays. What appeared was not Shenyuan's architectural blueprints. Instead, it was a massive folder that had been forcibly hacked open. The title prominently read, "Cost Optimization." When he saw clearly those scanned documents and bank statements that had been enlarged and highlighted in red on the big screen, Wyatt's blood seemed to be drained from him in that instant, and his entire body stiffened in place like a dead log. Inside, there was clearly his detailed plan for replacing eco-friendly materials with highly toxic inferior building materials. It was the money laundering records between him and overseas offshore shell companies, and ironclad evidence of him transferring several $1 million in dirty money to several key internal auditors. Boom! The entire venue completely erupted. All the media reporters and news channel broadcast cameras frantically and mercilessly zoomed in on Wyatt's face, which was pale as paper. "Oh my God, those are bribery records. This is a felony. No, this isn't real." Wyatt hysterically waved his hands, retreating again and again, his tie completely askew to one side. "This is forged. It is AI generated. It is malicious framing by competitors." Toby's voice, through the speakers, cold as polar glaciers, announced the arrival of death itself. Forged. Mr. Wyatt, every single one of these original files has your personal electronic encrypted signature and modification timestamps. More importantly, they all came from a USB drive in your personal safe in your study, the one that can only be opened with your fingerprint. Forget keying his sports car or burning his custom Tom Ford suits on the front lawn. This right here is what top-tier white collar annihilation looks like. Wyatt arrogantly thought his only problem was managing a supposedly amnesiac wife. He didn't realize he was playing chess against an apex predator, watching a narcissistic, cheating CEO get legally and publicly eviscerated by the very man who is about to upgrade his ex-wife's life is pure, unadulterated poetry. You don't defeat a corporate manipulator with tears and screaming matches. You defeat him with IP addresses, federal wire fraud charges, and a live press broadcast. He built his glass castle on lies, and Harper just handed the FBI the sledgehammer. Just now, the FBI's technical division has already verified the authenticity of this data. This statement from Toby became the final ton of boulders that crushed this camel. Wyatt's legs went weak, and he heavily slumped back into the high-end cushioned chair. His eyes were hollow as death, muttering to himself, "It is over. all over. Just then, the heavy double doors of the conference center were suddenly pushed open. A group of federal agents wearing black suits with golden badges on their chests strode in with stern expressions. They crossed through the crowd and walked straight to Wyatt, who had collapsed in his chair, then produced a search warrant and an arrest warrant. "Mr. Wyatt, we are from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Commercial Crime Investigation Division. You are suspected of serious commercial fraud, endangering public safety, and massive bribery and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent, but you are now officially under arrest." The cold and heavy silver handcuffs clicked with a clack, mercilessly cuffing the hands of this once all powerful CEO. That sound, crisp and piercing, was the sound of his glorious palace of sin completely collapsing. Under the close-up shooting of hundreds of cameras, under the gaze of the entire city, like a stray dog that lost its home, he was forcibly dragged from his seat by the agents and roughly escorted out of the conference hall doors. "Son, my son, let him go." Martha below the stage let out a shrill scream like a pig being slaughtered. Unable to accept this instant fall from heaven to hell, she couldn't catch her breath, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed stiff and straight onto the cold marble floor. The entire venue, filled with celebrities, turned into a massive scene of social news, utter chaos. And the man who personally directed this devastating drama, Toby, he calmly pushed up the gold-rimmed glasses on his nose, turned off the microphone, and under the escort of several black-clad bodyguards, walked down from the podium unhurriedly. Mission accomplished, he brushed off his sleeves and left, hiding his achievements and fame deep within. At the same time, in another upscale apartment in the city center, Zoe was sitting anxiously on the off-white sofa, trimming her delicate nails. For some reason, her heart was beating fast. Since this morning, she hadn't been able to reach Wyatt. Her messages vanished, like stones dropped into the sea. She had an extremely uneasy premonition. She picked up the remote, turned on the television, and switched to the largest local financial news channel, hoping to see a live broadcast of Wyatt's triumphant interview after winning the $100 billion project. This would give her, their meritorious contributor, capital to be kept as a mistress once again. However, the moment the screen lit up, what popped up was a glaring, bright, red breaking news. The headline read prominently, "Business Star Falls. Renowned real estate CEO Wyatt, suspected of federal felony, handcuffed and taken away by FBI on the spot at $100 billion bidding conference." On the television screen, footage was looping of Wyatt being escorted out of the conference center in a wretched state, his hands cuffed behind his back by several tall agents. His face, usually meticulously maintained to look refined and handsome, was now filled with despair, defeat, and dejection, like a death row inmate who had aged 10 years in an instant. The expensive beauty scissors in Zoe's hand fell with a clack onto the luxurious carpet. Her mind buzzed, instantly going completely blank. How is this possible? How could this happen? That was Wyatt, the cash cow and long-term meal ticket she had worked so hard to latch onto. Wasn't the project supposed to be rock solid? Trembling all over, she grabbed her phone and frantically dialed Martha's number. The phone rang for a full minute before being answered. From the other end came the noisy sounds of nurses, followed by Martha's weak yet venomous roar as she had just woken up in the ambulance. "You cursed jinx, who won't leave us alone. You actually have the nerve to call me. It is all you. It is all because of you. You cheap homewrecker. That you ruined my son. If he hadn't blown all his money on those tacky designer bags for you, how would he have ended up embezzling company funds for bribes? If my son goes to prison, I won't let you go even as a ghost. You just wait." Beep! 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 The call was viciously cut off from the other end. Zoe listened to the busy tone on her phone. Her whole body felt like it had fallen into an icy abyss, cold sweat instantly soaking through the expensive silk nightgown she was wearing. She was done for. The only person who could back her up. Martha had pushed all the blame onto her, and her biggest patron Wyatt had fallen. Those people she had trampled underfoot would definitely kick her while she was down. Enormous panic gripped her throat like an invisible giant hand. She couldn't just sit and wait for death. The rent here and her credit card bills were about to be due. She had to run. She had to leave America and escape to Europe. She scrambled and crawled into the master bedroom, pulled out those huge Herm-Face suitcases, and frantically stuffed all the valuable jewelry, watches, and bags inside. But when she opened the bottom drawer of the vanity to search for her newly obtained Europe visa and passport, she discovered in despair that the drawer was empty. She suddenly remembered that last week Wyatt said the company's overseas travel project needed to register information, and had taken her passport, just as she was frantic like an ant on a hot pan. Ding, dong, the doorbell rang, urgent and forceful. Once then again, like the Grim Reaper knocking on her door. Zoe was scared out of her wits. She thought it was those legitimate wives she had offended before, or the ruthless loan sharks coming to collect their debts. She covered her mouth tightly, not daring to make a sound, shivering in the shadows under the bed. The doorbell stopped ringing. 3 seconds passed, and in its place came the sound of a cold metal key sliding into the keyhole. She had forgotten that this apartment was rented under the company's name, and those law enforcement officers had every right to enter with a search warrant. The door was pushed open. Walking in were several agents wearing bulletproof vests with SEC and FBI abbreviations. They ruthlessly swept the room with their flashlight beams and dragged the screaming Zoe out from under the bed. "Miss Zoe, we're from the Federal Financial Crimes Investigation Division. As a key beneficiary of Wyatt's illegal fund transfers, your overseas accounts are suspected of involvement in money laundering. Please come with us to the Bureau to assist in the investigation." Before Zoe could make excuses, cold handcuffs were just as mercilessly cuffed onto her delicate wrists that were covered in exquisite nail polish. She didn't even have time to change clothes, and was forcibly escorted out of the apartment door by 2 female agents wearing a ridiculous silk nightgown. The moment she was brought out of the apartment building, she discovered in despair that the building entrance had long been blocked solid by gossip, hungry media and influencers who had caught wind of the news. Like a school of sharks smelling blood, they swarmed over. Countless microphones were shoved rudely into her face, the flashbulbs blinding her so she couldn't open her eyes. "Miss Zoe, as Wyatt's long-term mistress, were you aware of his bribery methods? I heard Wyatt embezzled construction funds to buy you a villa in Beverly Hills. Is that true? Isn't this like eating blood-soaked bread while showing off your wealth?" Sharp, extremely humiliating and tricky questions pierced through her eardrums like dense bullets. She desperately tried to cover her face with her handcuffed hands, and amid the deafening chorus of camera shutters and curses, she was stuffed into the black police car like a drowned dog. Within an hour, her disgraceful state spread across all social media platforms. Those high-definition, uncensored arrest photos topped the trending list at number 1. Her social media account comment section was completely overrun by righteous netizens. "Home you wrecker, go rot in prison. So she is a parasite, using money from killing people with substandard building materials to buy luxury brands. Absolutely disgusting. Serves her right, so satisfying. Once upon a time, she was that kind of high and mighty white lotus who seduced men by acting fragile and lived a luxurious life. And now her glamorous facade was completely torn apart, reduced to a criminal accomplice and fucking gold digger that everyone wanted to beat down, and was spurned by the entire internet. In the cold interrogation room, there were no luxury cars, no candlelight from high-end restaurants. Only the pale fluorescent lights and the stern, impartial interrogator. Those luxury goods she'd swiped her card for without a second thought. Those properties registered under her name. Now they'd all become ironclad evidence, pinning her firmly to money laundering charges. She cried. She begged for mercy, saying she'd been tricked, saying she didn't know anything. But the bubble of lies had already burst, and there was no devoted CEO coming to save her anymore. She fell hard from that cloud where she'd tried to seize the nest, crashing straight into an inescapable hell. The sound of her bones shattering, only she could hear it. This is karma. The life she owed me in my past life. In this life, she and that scumbag will repay slowly with half a lifetime behind bars. In Toby's penthouse apartment with its tight security, on the massive high-definition curved-screen television, the live broadcast of this trial and manhunt of the century that had shocked all of America was playing. Wyatt being shoved onto the prison van, like a dead dog. Martha's pathetic state being resuscitated at the hospital. And Zoe in her nightgown being mocked and cyberbullied. Scene after scene, presented in high definition, uncensored, right before our eyes. Sarah's face flushed red with excitement as she raised high that glass of excellent vintage champagne and shouted, "Cheers to the doomsday that bastard couple deserves. To our reborn Queen Harper, bottoms up." I picked up the crystal glass and clinked it crisply with Sarah's the sound of the wine glasses colliding. Was like a funeral bell tolling farewell to my past filled with forbearance and humiliation. I took a sip of the ice-cold champagne, the fruity flavor and tipsy bubbles exploding on my tongue, carrying an ultimate exhilaration of sweet revenge, utterly satisfying. I looked at the screen at that scumbag who used to be so high and mighty, no walking with his head down in despair into the dark prison van. That boulder called resentment that had been pressing on my heart finally shattered with a thunderous crash at this moment, scattering with the wind. That nightmare that had haunted me for 2 lifetimes and left me unable to rest in peace was completely over. I was free. Toby, sitting on the single sofa, wasn't drinking. He merely crossed his long legs, his gaze quietly resting on me. His eyes were deep and gentle, like an unfathomably deep, yet all-embracing lake, carrying a strange power that could soothe the soul. "It is all over," he spoke, his cello-like voice echoing in the spacious living room. I nodded, turned around, and showed him the first genuine, unmasked, brilliant smile in these past few months. "Yeah, it is all over. Toby, thank you so much. Without you orchestrating everything behind the scenes, I could never have done this so thoroughly on my own." But he gently shook his head and put down the document for a multi-billion-dollar betting agreement he had just signed. A rare, slightly nostalgic complex emotion flashed through his eyes. "Harper, I am helping you not because you paid the hefty attorney fees, and not because I am your attorney. It is because—" He paused, stood up from his seat, and slowly walked to the floor, to ceiling window, his slender fingers gently caressing his cufflinks. "Do you remember that stormy night at League 10 years ago? 10 years ago," my mind went blank. Back then, I had just entered college, busy every day with student council activities and part-time jobs, my head full of naive fantasies. I tried hard to recall, but couldn't grasp any related memory fragments. I looked at him apologetically, I am sorry, I don't remember. Toby seemed to have anticipated this answer. He smiled without minding, a gentle light rising in those deep eyes. It is okay. It doesn't matter that you don't remember. It is enough that I remember. He turned around, leaning against the brilliant city nightscape, and began to slowly recount. 10 years ago, I was just a law school student with a full scholarship, dirt poor, because my family suddenly encountered a crisis, and my mother fell seriously ill. I couldn't pay the rent and living expenses for the second half of the semester, and was about to be forced to take a leave of absence to work as a waiter. That night, it was pouring rain, and the school library was closed. I sat alone on the cold steps of the classroom building, feeling like the whole world had abandoned me. So desperate I wanted to jump right off from there. Just then, a female student passing by, holding a huge transparent umbrella, walked up to me. My heart suddenly stirred. The sealed, away memories seemed to loosen a bit. Toby continued in a low voice. She didn't ask anything, just forcefully shoved that umbrella that could block out the downpour into my hands. Then she also placed an envelope of cash she'd just gotten from tutoring right on top of the umbrella handle. She said, "Hey, no matter what shitty things you are going through, the sky will always clear up. Don't freeze to death here." After she said that, she ran off into the pouring rain. I didn't even have time to get a good look at her face. I only remember she was wearing a somewhat old white hoodie. When she smiled, she had 2 faint dimples on her cheeks. And also, his gaze slowly moved down, landing on my wrist. When she reached out her hand, she was wearing a silver star-shaped bracelet on her wrist. My breathing abruptly stopped in that instant. I instinctively reached for my empty right wrist. That knot. So expensive star bracelet was a keepsake my grandmother left me back then. Later, I thought it was too cheap to match Mrs. Wyatt's status, so I put it away at the bottom of my jewelry box. I was so shocked that my mouth fell slightly open, looking up at the top ace elite lawyer in this city standing before me. That person who gave you an umbrella in the pouring rain was me. Toby nodded solemnly, the unfathomable affection in his eyes almost drowning me. It was you, Harper. You probably forgot about this trivial little thing a long time ago, but you don't know. What you gave me that day wasn't just an umbrella and some money. What you gave me was the hope to survive in this cold world and the courage to change my fate. From that day on, I swore to myself that I would make something of myself, that I would stand at the top of the pyramid, and then find you and repay you. I searched for you for a full 10 years, until that day, when Sarah came to me, this city's notorious 2 guy, with your medical records and plea for help, her eyes red. The moment I saw your photo in those documents, I knew heaven had finally given me a chance to legitimately pull you back out from hell. I listened in a daze, the stunning in my heart beyond measure, stirring up tremendous waves. I never dreamed that a casual act of kindness I did 10 years ago would transcend a decade of time and become today the strongest blade to rescue me from my sea of suffering. Karma, cause and effect, good and evil, always get their due. I looked at the man before me. He was handsome, composed, and powerful, to the point of giving me immense peace of mind. He was the sharpest, most lethal sword on my path of revenge, and he was the only ray of light that shone through in my darkest moment of this second life. Turns out, he wasn't some aloof deity. He was the kindness I had once sown, summoned for me at Hell's Gate, my most loyal guardian knight. My eyes grew hot, my vision blurred by mist. I took a deep breath, held back my tears, and gave him the most radiant smile after the storm. Toby, I am so glad to meet you again. reunited in this way. Toby looked at my smile, and he smiled too. That smile seemed to dispel all the winter cold of this city. Outside the window, the storm had completely ceased. A bright moon hung high in the night sky. I knew that my life had finally cleared up after the rain. Those rotten, stinking people and events of the past died as of yesterday. Those shining, glowing days of the future are born as of today. This time, I am no longer anyone's humble, pitiful wife, nor that fool begging for someone else's love. I am my own queen, Harper. And this time, by my throne, there is a knight willing to cut through all thorns for me. Wyatt's hollow commercial real estate empire collapsed overnight. The moment the FBI got involved, like a rapidly weathering sand sculpture, his company's stock hit the limit down in the first second of trading, then was forcibly suspended by the SEC. Countless business partners, banks, and even the golf buddies he once took pride in, all distanced themselves from him, like avoiding the plague, and even proactively provided prosecutors with more dirt on him to protect themselves. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. When the wall collapses, Ivorione pushes. Major mainstream media headlines exposed how he built his fortune through fake packaging, how he disregarded human lives for profit, bribed and laundered money. His criminal history was stripped bare, not even leaving him his underwear. He went from an Ivy League graduate business genius, a perfect husband who had graced the cover of financial magazines, to a prisoner that everyone wanted to beat down, nailed to the pillar of shame. Sarah and I, in Toby's top floor apartment with its excellent view, watched the rolling news broadcasts on television, feeling incredibly refreshed. Sarah opened another bottle of premium champagne and excitedly danced around the living room. "This is karma, Harper. Did you see that? God's eyes are sharp. That bastard got what he deserved." I nodded and drained the golden liquid in my glass in one gulp. In my heart, there was an unprecedented peace and relief. The hatred that had entangled me for 2 lifetimes, strangling my neck like a venomous snake, finally came to a cold and perfect end at this moment. A few days later, Toby returned to the apartment, wearing a well-tailored dark blue custom suit, carrying a black briefcase. He took out from it the final divorce decree bearing the seal of the California Supreme Court, along with a thick stack of asset transfer documents. He signed everything, right there in the detention center's visitation room. Toby pushed the documents in front of me, adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, and a cold arc curved at the corner of his mouth. In order to get a few years shaved off his sentence, he gave up all resistance and property claims. Harper, all of his unfrozen personal net assets, including that big flat you two lived in, the 2 vacation villas in Beverly Hills, stocks and funds, as well as the massive cash in the trust account, have now been legally transferred to your name. As for his company, that is already declared bankruptcy and liquidation. All the bad debts and liabilities are legally severed from you, completely unrelated. Sarah screamed excitedly beside me and let out a loud whistle. Yes, Queen, take that scumbag's money and start our brilliant and glorious new life. I looked at those documents with black characters on white paper in front of me, my fingers gently brushing over the signature area, but there wasn't the slightest ripple or wild joy in my heart. This money is nothing more than what I deserve. It is the compensation I brought back from hell in my previous life, exchanged with 2 lives, my own and my unborn child's just. Then, the apartment's video intercom system suddenly rang. The security supervisor reported through the intercom, his tone somewhat awkward. "Mr. Toby, there is a Miss Martha in the lobby downstairs who claims to be Wyatt's mother. She looks mentally unstable and she is making a scene, insisting on seeing Miss Harper. Sarah and I exchanged glances, both seeing the undisguised mockery in each other's eyes. What had to come had finally come. I walked to the high-definition surveillance screen in the entryway. On the screen, Martha no longer had her usual bejeweled, imperious lady of the manor appearance. She wore a wrinkled old windbreaker, her hair grey and disheveled, her face so haggard she looked 10 years older. She sat on the sofa in the luxurious lobby, wailing without any regard for her image, even slapping her thighs and cursing something, drawing countless stares and whispers from residents coming and going. Have security bring her to the reception room, I said calmly. Sarah grabbed my hand with some concern. Harper, why bother seeing that old witch? Just let her make a fool of herself downstairs until the police kick her out. I shook my head, my eyes freezing over like ice. Some knots, I must cut myself. I want her to lose clearly and completely, beyond any doubt. Soon Martha was brought into the exclusive glass visitation room by 2 burly security personnel. As soon as she saw me walk in, she went crazy and tried to lunge at me to claw my face. Harper, you vicious witch, you venomous woman. The bodyguard unceremoniously shoved her back and pressed her down into the chair. She could only glare at me viciously, attacking me with the nastiest words. It is you. It is all you who ruined my son. How did our family ever wrong you? You actually teamed up with outsiders to destroy him with your own hands. I stood 2 steps away from her, coldly looking down at her, like watching a ridiculous jumping clown. Wrong me? I suddenly laughed, laughing until a trace of icy tears welled up in the corners of my eyes. This was the last tear I shed for that version of myself from the previous life. Martha, are you getting senile and forgetful about some things? I walked toward her step by step, my voice extremely gentle, yet like a cold wind blowing from the 9 depths of hell. In my previous life, I had a sudden massive hemorrhage and lay alone on the emergency room bed, blood soaking through the sheets. I was waiting for your good son to come see me one last time. Where was he? He was keeping that Zoe company, who only knows how to fake illness for sympathy. I used my last bit of strength to call you, my mother-in-law, for help, begging you to have him rushed to the hospital. What did you say? I imitated that mean and contemptuous tone she had back then. Word by word, you said, Harper, can't you stop being so delicate and so unreasonable? Zoe's having a panic attack, and Wyatt can't get away. It is just a minor illness, isn't it? Everyone else is fine. Why are you the only one making such a fuss all day long? Every word I spoke was like an extremely heavy hammer, smashing hard into Martha's chest. Her face changed from ferocious to deathly pale, her eyes beginning to lose focus. In the end, because the optimal time for resuscitation was missed, I died. 1 corpse 2 lives. Martha, what your son owes me, what you owe me, is 2 living human lives. My voice suddenly rose, echoing throughout the entire visiting room. Today, I am only making him fall from grace and land in prison for the crimes he committed, and taking back that dirty money that belongs to me. Compared to what you mother and son did to me, do you think I am being vicious? Martha's body began to tremble violently. She couldn't understand what I meant by previous life, but she saw clearly the hatred in my eyes that went deep into my bones and the indifference as if I were looking at a dead person. She looked at me, her eyes filled with extreme fear of me for the first time, as if looking at a vengeful ghost that had crawled back from hell. Number. Impossible? You are a lunatic. What are you talking about? She shook her head incoherently, and the pitiful pride that had been supporting her all along completely shattered. I don't want to waste even 1 more second of air on her. I turned around and coldly spat out 2 words at the security guards. Escort her out. The security personnel lifted up Martha, who had gone limp as mud and half dragged, half hauled her out of the building. The world was finally completely at peace. I let out a long breath, turned around, and walked towards the floor, to ceiling window. Sunlight broke through the clouds, bathing the entire city. I said to Sarah behind me and Toby, who had been quietly standing at the door watching me, "I've decided I am going to open my own content creation studio and write the stories I truly want to write. From today on, I am no longer anyone's appendage, no longer living for anyone else. I am only living for myself." My studio was quickly established in an artsy loft in the city center. The name is Clear Sky. It symbolizes that, after the storm, my future will be free of shadows. Toby became my studio's only free legal counsel, as well as the biggest chief angel investor. He mobilized his vast network in Los Angeles and New York to find me the top, most professional script development team in the industry. From project approval, screenwriting guidance, to post-production and distribution, everything was arranged perfectly and ran smoothly, and Sarah immediately quit her original boring job and volunteered to become my ace agent and chief executive officer. With the 2 of them as my solid backing like an iron wall, it was like a tiger with wings, pouring all my heart and soul into my creative work. My first original script was completed in just 3 months. It was a revenge story about how a woman completes self-redemption and rises from the ashes in desperate circumstances. In it, there were shadows of my blood, soaked tears from my previous life, as well as my new insights into this cruel world. Toby was the first reader of this script. That night, late at night, the Los Angeles night scene was dazzling and enchanting. He sat across from me at the large mahogany desk in my studio, quietly reading through the last page of the script. Only the occasional tapping sounds of my fingers on the keyboard and the rustling of him turning pages remained in the room. The dim yellow floor lamp cast light on his handsome profile, and the atmosphere was so warm and peaceful that I was reluctant to break it. I stretched lazily, just as my eyes met his gaze lifting from the script. His eyes were deep and bright, like the most profound nebula in the night sky. "Finished reading?" I asked with a smile. Attorney Gu. "Oh no." Producer Toby. "Any professional suggestions for revisions?" He slowly closed the script, pondered for a moment, his voice low and filled with an incredible magnetism. "The story is excellent, the logic is tight, and the emotions are extremely moving. This is definitely a script that will explode in the market. But, as a reader, I have a personal question. What is the matter?" I asked curiously. Propping my chin up as I looked at him, he stared at me intently, his gaze burning, as if trying to see right through me. After experiencing betrayal, death, and rebirth, the female lead in the story met a knight who silently cleared obstacles for her and protected her. In the end, did she accept that knight's love? My heart skipped a beat in an instant. Of course I knew that he wasn't asking about that fictional character in the script, but about us in reality. I suddenly felt my mouth go dry, unnaturally avoiding his overly intense gaze. "Well, I am still working it out. Haven't figured out the final ending yet." He chuckled softly, stood up, and with his long legs stepped around the desk, coming to my side. His tall figure completely enveloped me. That uniquely reassuring scent of cedarwood, mixed with a faint tobacco fragrance that belonged to him, lingered around my nose, making my originally clear mind become a bit flustered and dizzy. "Harper." It was the first time he called my name in such a low and extremely serious tone. "Do you remember? I told you a few days ago That I've been searching for you for a full 10 years? I nodded, my heart pounding like a drum. I always thought that I searched for you all over the world just to repay the life, saving kindness you showed a poor student in that heavy rain all those years ago. But when I truly saw you again, when I saw you in that cafe's file photo, deep in the mire, when I saw you putting on a brave face to protect yourself, I suddenly realized that paying a debt was just an excuse I used to cover up my own inner greed. He propped his hands on either side of my chair back, leaned down, and looked deeply into my eyes. I want to use every means possible to protect you. I want you to smile again without any reservations. I want to personally offer you all the best and purest things in this world. These impulses are not out of gratitude, but out of... He paused for a moment, his burning breath falling on my cheeks, each word clear and distinct. Love. Harper, I love you. Not from the day we reunited, but from that stormy night 10 years ago. From the moment you pressed that open umbrella into my freezing hands and turned to run into the rain. That warmth was like a seed planted in my heart, taking root and sprouting, growing into a towering tree. It can never be uprooted again. My mind instantly went blank, my heart pounding wildly in my chest, as if it wanted to break through all restraints and rush toward him. I never imagined that someone like him, a top-tier lawyer, standing at the pinnacle of the pyramid, cold and ruthless, would lay bare his inner heart to me in such a profoundly affectionate way. And I never imagined that on that dark night 10 years ago, there was someone who, in the torrent of time, had quietly placed me at the tip of their heart. My eyes instantly grew warm and moist. My heart was filled with emotion, shock, and a trace of bewildered timidity about the future. I had just escaped from a hellish marriage that was enough to burn me to ashes. Did I really have the courage to once again give my body and soul, without reservation, to another man? I lowered my long lashes, avoiding his gaze-me voice slightly trembling. Toby, I am very happy and very touched, but I need some time. I admit, I am still scared. He didn't pressure me, didn't urgently demand any promises. Instead, he slowly reached out his well-defined hand and extremely gently ruffled my hair. His palm was warm and dry, carrying a power sufficient to soothe all pain. It's okay, he laughed softly, the tenderness in his eyes so deep it could almost completely melt me. I've waited for you for 10 years. I don't mind waiting a few more months, or even a few more years. When you are completely ready and willing to give me your hand, I'll be here anytime. He withdrew his hand, gentlemanly taking a step back, leaving me enough space to breathe. All right, it is getting late. Future ace screenwriter, it is time to go home and sleep obediently now. If you ruin your health under my investment, I'll sue you, you know. He was like a thoughtful and attentive older brother, and even more like an absolutely reliable soulmate. With his incredibly mature, uniquely his own way, he protected my heart that was riddled with wounds, and gave me the utmost respect. I watched his upright figure as he turned to get my coat for me, and something in the depths of my heart was quietly breaking through the soil. I knew that the seed called love, after enduring a long harsh winter and death in this fertile soil called Toby, finally was about to bloom into the most brilliant flower once again. Anya, the first female-led suspense revenge drama produced by Clear Sky Studio, premiered exclusively on a streaming giant platform, instantly creating an explosive breakthrough into the mainstream. With a viral spread that no one had anticipated, it became a hit across the globe. With a rock-solid, flawless script, a top-tier Hollywood production team, plus explosive performances from the actors. This show shot straight to #1 on the viewership charts as soon as it aired, not only breaking the streaming records of the past 3 years, but also triggering a phenomenal frenzy of discussion on social media. And I, as the core original screenwriter of this show, completely stepped from behind the scenes to the dazzling spotlight at the forefront. For the first time, the name Harper became known and praised by the whole world as an independent, talented creator. All kinds of top-tier interview invitations and high-end cocktail party requests came flying to the studio like snowflakes. Under Sarah's management, I became Hollywood's current hottest up and coming ace screenwriter with the highest market value. That day, Sarah excitedly handed me a gold-embossed invitation. It was an awards ceremony with extremely high prestige. My first work had been nominated for the Best Original Screenplay of the Year award. Just being nominated meant I'd already stepped into the top echelon of this industry on the night of the awards ceremony. The theater in the heart of Los Angeles was glittering with stars, and the red carpet was covered with hundreds of journalists wielding their cameras. I wore a custom-tailored starry blue deep V-neck haute, couture evening gown studded with tiny diamonds, which set off my already outstanding temperament like a goddess emerging from the night sky. And the male companion escorting me down the red carpet was Toby, also dressed in an extremely well-tailored haute couture black suit, with a presence so powerful it made people afraid to look directly at him. The moment we appeared, we immediately became the absolute focus of all the flashing lights. The screams and shutter clicks almost flipped the red carpet over. Reporters swarmed up like a school of sharks that had smelled blood. "Mr. Toby, as a top lawyer and partner of Apex Group, are you attending tonight as Miss Harper's investor or as her personal companion?" Miss Harper! The entire internet is buzzing that your new script reflects the scandals of your ex-husband's family. Are you using the script to carry out your personal judgment? Are you two dating? Toby shielded me tightly in his arms, using his broad chest to block out all the cameras and microphones trying to get close. Facing those cameras and reporters, he flashed a calm and utterly charming smile and answered in his highly distinctive deep voice. "Tonight, I am here as Miss Harper's exclusive escort to witness her shining moment. As for other private matters, please keep the focus on her perfect work." His response was flawless. It protected me while boldly announcing to the world our unusually intimate relationship, leaving endless room for public imagination. We walked into the glamorous celebrity venue, and along the way, renowned directors and top Hollywood producers continuously came forward to greet me and exchange business cards. The look in their eyes was filled with genuine admiration and respect. At this moment, I finally completely shed that label. I was no longer that pitiful, unloved, mentally unstable wife of wealthy businessman Wyatt. I am Harper, a brilliantly talented, all-powerful star screenwriter. This feeling of taking control of my own life is fucking amazing. Just as I was having a pleasant conversation with a producer, an extremely discordant, sharp female voice dripping with sourness rang out from behind me. "Oh my, if it isn't our always high and mighty attorney Toby." I turned around. A glamorous woman dressed in a tight, low-cut red gown, made up seductively and somewhat excessively, walked over. I recognized her. She was Jessica, the daughter of some Wall Street financial tycoon, also one of the women who had tried to pursue Toby zealously, but was repeatedly rebuffed. Jessica's eyes, heavily lined with eyeliner, examined me from head to toe with undisguised contempt and harshness. Then She even tried to reach out her hand to take Toby's arm. "Toby, how could you really condescend to attend this kind of entertainment industry event full of actors? And bring an second-hand goods who has been dumped by a man?" She deliberately emphasized the last words heavily. Toby's eyes instantly turned as cold as ice. He discreetly avoided her hand, even taking half a step back, as if she were some nauseating virus. His voice was cold enough to drop icicles. "Miss Jessica, if your upbringing only extends to spouting nonsense here, like a jealous shrew, then I don't mind having my legal team forward your company's recent shady tax issues to the Federal Audit Bureau tomorrow. Put away your ignorance. Harper is my most honored guest tonight. And moreover, she is the protagonist of tonight's best screenwriter. And you are just riding on your father's coattails. So pathetic. You can't even get a front row invitation, nothing but a side piece." Jessica's hyaluronic acid-filled face instantly turned the color of pig liver. So humiliated she practically wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into right then and there. I gently tugged at Toby's arm and winked at him, stopping him from continuing to unleash his pressure. I turned to look at Jessica, flawless, elegant, yet lethal smile spreading across my face. "Miss Jessica, I think you've got it wrong. A woman's greatest value has never been about being chosen by which man, but about what kind of world she herself has created. As for marriage, that is just an unremarkable mud pit I stepped in during my life. After cleaning it off, I can still wear my crystal shoes and climb to the top. That is 1,000 times better than certain people who rack their brains and exhaust every scheme trying to marry into so-called wealthy families. Yet can't even touch the door handle, right? Me words sharp without a single curse word, wear like a poison, laced soft blade that stabbed precisely into Jessica's vain, yet insecure heart. The surrounding elites let out a chorus of low snickers, casting contemptuous glances her way. You ungrateful woman." Jessica was flustered and furious, fleeing the scene in a mess on her high heels. I turned around and looked at Toby, who was also looking at me with a smile. Like a female warrior who had won a battle, I proudly raised my swan like neck. Moments later, the award ceremony officially began. When the presenter on stage opened the envelope containing the results and loudly announced through the microphone, "The Emmy Award for Outstanding Writing goes to Harper in my brain," it was like the most brilliant firework exploded instantly. Thousands of people in the entire venue stood up collectively, and thunderous applause swept through the theater like a tsunami. Toby and Sarah, who was sitting in the back row, both excitedly stood up and gave me an extremely forceful hug. "You did it, my queen," Toby whispered softly in my ear. I took a deep breath, holding up that expensive dress that was like a starry sky, stepping on the starlight all over the floor. Step by step, calmly and unhurriedly, walking up to that award stage, watched by the entire world. The spotlight followed my figure. I stood in front of the microphone, both hands tightly gripping that heavy. I surveyed the expressions below the stage, full of respect, admiration, and even disbelief. Finally, my gaze pierced through the vast sea of celebrities and landed with absolute precision on the man who had been silently watching me all along, Toby. I spoke into the microphone, delivering the acceptance speech that would later be revered as gospel by countless independent women. Thank you to the judging committee. Thank you to my team Clear Sky. Thank you to all the viewers who believed in me along this journey. And even more thanks to those who once tried to shatter me, to push me into the abyss. Because it was you who forged this indestructible armor I wear today. The entire venue fell silent, with only the lights flickering. I looked at Toby, the corners of my mouth lifting into a smile that was both brilliantly radiant and deeply affectionate to the core. Finally, I want to dedicate this trophy to someone special. He once told me on many nights, "I've waited for you for 10 years. Today, standing here, I want to say to him through cameras broadcasting to the whole world." I paused slightly, my eyes misting up, but a light like the starry sea and ocean flickered in their depths. Stop waiting. Because that girl who once got lost in the pouring rain has finally come to you, and moreover, she is already caught you. This earth-shattering, domineering reverse confession caused the entire venue to fall into a dead silence that lasted a full 5 seconds. Right after that, an even more intense burst of wild cheers, screams, and whistles erupted, almost enough to blow the roof off. Cameras went crazy, snapping shots of me like there was no tomorrow. Under the gaze of hundreds of millions of viewers worldwide, Toby slowly rose to his tall, loaded figure, with long, steady strides, ignoring all the cameras and flashing lights. He climbed up the stage, steps one by one, and walked right up to me. He didn't say any bullshit. He just extended his strong arms and, in front of the entire world, pulled me tightly into his embrace, both domineering and cherishing me to the extreme. He planted a scorching kiss by my earlobe, his voice hoarse and sexy as hell. My queen. In this moment I finally understood completely. The hell that belonged to me had been reduced to ashes. My rebirth and my greatest love, in this moment, had only just begun to unveil the most romantic curtain under this brilliant starry sky. Unsurprisingly, that embrace and domineering confession on the Emmy stage completely blew up the internet worldwide. Number award, winning female screenwriter, Harper dominates stage reverse, picking ultimate perfect man number. Number ace lawyer Toby's 10-year secret. Crush comes true. Number crazy trending topics like these dominated the top of the hot search rankings for an entire month afterwards. And what about that scumbag Wyatt? He saw this scene broadcasted on television in prison. At that moment, he smashed his meal tray like a madman, and ultimately, due to his refusal to obey discipline, he was mercilessly dragged by the guards into an even harsher, windowless solitary confinement cell. His decades. Long prison life would be spent every single day in jealousy, regret, and utter darkness. This was heaven's most perfect verdict for this piece of trash. As for Zoe, after getting out of prison, because of her serious money laundering record, she couldn't get anywhere in this country and could only slink back to the slums in the end, barely scraping by as a cleaner at a low-grade motel. Everything that seemed within reach turned out to be nothing but bubbles. 2 years later, on another beautiful afternoon with warm spring weather and blooming flowers, sunlight spilled onto the huge terrace of a cliffside ocean view villa I had just purchased. I had just typed the last word of my latest suspense thriller screenplay that was already being fought over by several major Hollywood studios. I stretched contentedly and rubbed my sore neck. A large warm palm suddenly covered my shoulders and neck, massaging my tired muscles with moderate pressure and extremely skillful technique. Toby's familiar woody scent that belonged exclusively to me gently enveloped me. He lowered his head and kissed my forehead at a highly seductive distance. Master screenwriter, even billionaires need to rest. Don't push yourself too hard. I chuckled softly and leaned back against his broad, firm chest, feeling his strong, powerful heartbeat. I raised my hand, and the sunlight pierced through the thin clouds, illuminating the 3-carat emerald. cut engagement ring on my ring finger that sparkled with ultimate brilliance. It was custom, made by top craftsmen using a design he personally drew, own of a kind. I turned my head to look at his profile, which had grown increasingly mature and profound, yet made me utterly and hopelessly infatuated. Toby, don't you feel like our life right now is like a beautiful, unreal movie? I murmured softly. With that lethal deep voice he used to dominate courtrooms. He chuckled softly by my ear and effortlessly swept me up from the office chair into his arms. If this is a movie, then it is a female lead film that belongs to you alone, and I am very honored to be the one and only best male lead in this movie who will stay by your side until the day we die. He lowered his head and sealed my lips with extreme tenderness and reverence. That kiss carried the absolute loyalty forged through life and death trials, and the irreplaceable deep affection that had traversed a long decade. The sea breeze of the metropolis brushed through my hair, bringing with it a salty, humid, and free scent. I closed my eyes and said to the woman from the past who had cried in despair on that hospital bed, "Don't be afraid. We made it through from this moment on. No more cowardly forgiveness, no more cheap lies, only the relief after revenge, only the applause from the throne, and, with this top lawyer before me who cherishes me to the bone, spending a lifetime without shadows, the most romantic clear skies for miles. My loves, let's take a collective deep breath and really look at the beautiful, brutal lesson this story leaves us with. For generations, women have been socially conditioned to be the collateral damage in a man's success story. We are taught to endure the neglect, to forgive the accidental betrayals, and to swallow our pride just to keep the title of Mrs. Harper literally died for that title in her first life. And how did her elite husband and his monster of a mother repay her loyalty? By treating her dying breaths like an inconvenience. But what I absolutely adore about Harper's rebirth is that her amnesia wasn't just a clever plot device to get the passcode to a safe. It was a profound metaphorical shedding of her old subservient self. She had to completely erase the woman who loved Wyatt in order to birth the queen who would destroy him. When a man shows you that your literal life means less to him than his mistress's fake anxiety attack, you owe him absolutely nothing, not your memory, not your grace, and certainly not his multi-billion-dollar startup. And let's have a moment of appreciation for Toby. Finding a man who doesn't just offer you empty apologies, but actually hands you the legal ammunition to ruin your enemies and clear your path to the Emmy stage. That is top-tier romance. Real love doesn't demand that you shrink your trauma to make him comfortable. Real love stands right beside you in a tailored suit while you burn the old world down, and then holds your hand while you build your own empire on the ashes. So I'm turning the floor over to you, my brilliant observers. Stay sharp, stay untouchable, and I'll see you in the next story. Cheers.